Greetings, everybody. This is Dr. Jamal Harrison Bryant. Welcome to the Let's Be Clear podcast. I need you to do me a favor before we even get started. Call all of your family members, the ones you like, the ones you're close to, and the ones you don't speak to. This is going to be a conversation of healing, enlightenment, encouragement, and empowerment. My sister and therapist is here, Dr. Thema Bryant. She is the former president of the American Psychological Association. She is a professor at Pepperdine University. She is an accomplished writer, makes frequent appearances on Good Morning America, The Today Show, and everywhere in between. But today, she's with us. Welcome.
Oh, I feel welcome.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. I was thumbing through Netflix the other night, and they're having this trial show about a prison in Arkansas where the prisoners are shut down for 23 hours a day and only come out for 1 hour. So the warden says, I'm going to try an experiment, and I'm just going to open it up so that you all can build community. They interviewed one of the inmates, and the inmate said, every prisoner in this institution had an area of trauma in their childhood. They just need something significant to happen in their adulthood to reposition them.
Yeah.
How important is going through your childhood trauma?
Not only going through it, but the key part of community and relationship.
Yeah.
So many people are isolated. The Surgeon General even said that we are in a crisis of loneliness in the United States.
Wow.
That it's post-pandemic.
Yeah.
And yet people feel so much alone. You highlight that for people who are trauma survivors, because when you're a trauma survivor, you end up with a feeling of unworthiness. So then if I am stuck in silence and secret and shame, then I never get to be healed because I keep everyone at a distance. And I believe if I actually revealed myself, you would declare I'm unworthy. So I hide it.
Yeah.
So to be able to have real connection, real relationship is therapeutic.
No, I like it. How do you deal with loneliness when you're around people? Because a lot of people think alone is I'm in an apartment with cats and playing solitaire on my iPad.
Yes.
But a lot of people are lonely and they got a house full.
Yes.
Phone is ringing.
That's right.
DMs are full.
Yes.
But how do you contend with, it's almost like everybody assumes the pretty girl has a date to the prom.
That's right. And I would say the first thing is us removing the shame around loneliness. It's nothing bad about feeling lonely. Sometimes people will say things like, all you need to do is love yourself.
Yeah.
Self-love is not the same thing as connection, friendship, companionship. And so if you feel lonely, it's simply saying, I desire deeper connections than I have right now. Right? I know people, but as you're saying, it can be very surface and superficial.
Yeah.
People say, how are you? I'm fine. If you're churchy, I'm blessed. But I still have not revealed my heart. And many of us are the strong one, where you take care of everybody else, pastor, therapist, parent. And that can feel lonely if you don't have places where you can reveal your own truth.
Yeah.
And that's what we need, is really to cultivate more authenticity.
Yeah.
And it's actually contagious. When you share some of yourself, it usually leads other people to share. They're just waiting for someone else to lean into truth.
Yeah. How do you navigate that space for people who are rock stars at work, verified on social media, but are doing the heavy lifting of trying to manage a family? I've started a church, pastored a mega church, but the most difficult thing I've ever had to do was trying to be the lead coach of a family.
Yes.
How do you find that space?
The challenge is family life and real friendship requires a transparency, and it's always present. We can turn it on if you go on stage or go on a pulpit. You can do that, and about 2.5 hours, this is going to be over, then I can collapse in my office.
Yes.
But when you talk about home life or family, those are the people who are present when you're off.
Yes.
And so then it requires here it is, the risk of being seen, right? Because you can be highly visible and still invisible. Like they don't really know, you know, they feel they know you, but they don't know you.
Right.
But people who are in your house, they see the disappointment, they see the fatigue. And so now people want to go hide in the man cave. They want to go into their secret place, still resisting the vulnerability of being known.
Wow. Everybody talks about in this culture, Dr. Thema, your cutoff game is strong. Oh, listen, you come at me wrong, say something the wrong way, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm done. I got a butcher, cleaver, a steak knife. I'm coming for.
I never met you before.
I never met you.
I don't know this man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've never seen him ever. But tell me how painful, but sometimes necessary, but perceived as toxic to have to cut off family members.
Yeah. Yeah. So many times culturally, religiously, people have been taught that the measure of your love is how much you're willing to suffer.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
That's like ride or die. Right? I don't care what they did to me. I'll never tell on mama.
Sure.
I won't, and so we are so conditioned to protect those who harm us. And for me, that's one of the key distinctions between forgiveness and repentance, right? Some people aren't sorry. So they do not deserve space in your intimate life, in your close-up life. So a quote from our mother, Reverend Cecilia, she likes to say, "I'm not mad, I'm just finished." Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to just be willing to release. And because as a therapist, I don't tell people what they should do, I lay out the options. So it's not either cut them all the way off or have them all the way in. Some of us just need to have some moderation. Like, do you have to give them your whole holiday? Right? Do you have to really stay there all day, all weekend? You got to sleep there? Right. And then the little steps we can take of like, I might come in a little later, leave a little earlier. I might sit at the kids' table so I don't have to deal with that. I might volunteer to run all the errands. And also that there's a boundary of if you say this or if you do this, I'm going to take my kids and leave because I'm not going to let them be exposed to this.
Yeah. What about the healing for a lot of people in a disconnect or a wedge with adult children? Many times when you deal with parenting, you think about a 12-year-old, 14-year-old going through something. But with adult children, it becomes a whole different variable. I've lived through it. Is it parental love or is it realizing, hey, this is not a kid? At what level do you really check disrespect, or how much is the job to keep going after when the abuse is disrespect or the abuse is neglect?
This is a key question because a part of what it pulls at is the hope that as we transition into adulthood, that we can see our parents as full human beings instead of just what they should have been to me, but I can start to see like who are they to them, right? What has been their journey? When we think about our own parents, mom, one of 10, growing up in New York, daddy growing up as a pastor's kid, all of that shaped them and shaped how they related to us.
Yeah.
And so if you are growing into adulthood and emotionally maturing, then you have to take a second look at your parents. And when you take that second look, it can give you more grace and compassion instead of just your wounded child. That wounded child is there and needs some healing, but you can see with more clarity. And then I would say as the parent, it requires the emotional growth to see our mistakes, right? Some people are so invested in their defenses, but how healing it can be for a child, even if we're an adult, to say, I could have done better. That one, I did mess up. And that can be liberating because some people never get that, never get a parent who's willing to say sorry. And then, once we say like, there were missteps along the way, the question becomes, what do we want to make of this relationship now? Because we could spend the next 40 years talking about what happened when you were a child. But now that we're both adults, what do we want? What is possible for us?
Yeah. With the other side of that, from kid looking at parent, we are now in a space we've not been in before, dealing with aging parents. Dad is now turning 81.
Yeah.
Our mother is now contending with cancer, and we're seeing them literally age right before us. Yeah. So everybody deals with childhood trauma, but there's an adulthood trauma of being the child.
That's right.
So you and I were in a conversation. We do a family prayer every week. And me and Thema, the eternal kids, are texting outside the conversation saying, hey, what does this mean? What's the doctor really saying?
Yes.
How do you shift in that position where the child becomes the parent?
Yes. Yeah. So I would say multiple ways. One, and I'm glad they were receptive of, was us asking to be on the call with the doctors.
Yeah.
Because things can be lost in translation.
They were lost.
All right.
We were in a rabbit hole.
What is going on? I need to ask some specific questions.
Yeah.
And I think culturally and faith-wise, that becomes a tension, right? Because their initial response was, we trust our team.
Right.
I'm glad you trust your team. And I still have some questions, right? And I think on that religious space, for me, I would say as a psychologist and just as you would say from childhood, a very sensitive person, it's always important that we hold space for the fullness of people's emotions.
Yeah.
Whereas, the initial family response is always 100% faith, God, we feel victorious, we're overcomers. And, and I think on that first call when we were talking about the illness, and I just said, well, if anybody in the family ever feels any doubt, I hope we could share that here. Yeah. Right? I hope we don't have to do public relations with each other.
Right. I think a defining moment before we got to this moment is our mother had to go to the hospital and nobody told you. And so we got on a telephone conversation and you was like, is this mic on? I'm a full adult. I am the mother of 2 children, but y'all are seeing me as a kid.
Yes.
And I have a PhD in psychology, so the news is not too much for us to bear.
Yeah.
And there are a whole lot of parents who are withholding from their children because they still see them as children.
Absolutely. And feel like they want to protect you.
Yes.
And so we can honor like the desire to protect, and at the same time, the lack of information can cause more harm.
Wow.
And so that reminder you're naming, like, I'm the baby in the family at 50. I'm a big old 50 years old.
Right.
So, like, let's have room for truth.
Yeah, no. Both of us have been on 2 different life tracks and journeys. What would you think was the significant moment of our sibling bonding?
Moving to Liberia, where we didn't have friends and became best friends.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. So my 11th grade year, Thema's 9th grade year, my parents picked up and moved to West Africa. And
because before that, I just have to describe for the people. Like, we're opposites.
Yes.
So Jamal would be on the bus stop in Baltimore with his polo, all his name brand, all of that. And I was going to the Baltimore School for the Arts, standing at the bus stop with my dashiki on. And he would be like, why are you wearing that? He would not even be standing next to me on the bus stop. And then, when Daddy got elected to be a bishop and we moved to Liberia and none of us know anybody, we're instant besties.
Yeah.
And it has continued.
No, yeah, I would say the defining moment for me on knowing the depth of my love for you was when you brought us together as a family to tell us you had been sexually assaulted. And on top of that you were sexually assaulted by my best friend and fraternity brother. And for the very first time where jail became an option for me.
Yeah, which is why I didn't tell you for several years.
Yes, yeah, so for many years.
Yeah.
And that night really could have redefined my life, where I went and got a gun and was outside of this man's house. Daddy is calling me back to back. Mom is calling me back to back. I want to answer the phone. And none of you all knew where I was. And then you called. I didn't answer. You sent a text and said, jail is not worth it. Don't risk your whole life. And I just sit outside of that house with a gun in my hand, with tears coming down my face, saying, where am I? Under the responsibility that I felt like I had failed as a big brother in protecting my sister. So if it's different, it's a stranger. It was, I don't know, an ice skating coach. But it's somebody who you know that's in your midst, that's around you. That was one of the co-founders of my new church. So all of that on me, sometimes it makes me go into places that I had never been. I'm not a gangster, as some people would perceive me to be. I am not for the streets, as it is believed to be. But that moment was a defining moment for me in my life, and knowing where you, as a man, and feeling as if my manhood had been violated with your violation.
Yes, and it was.
Yeah.
It was. It was a betrayal of you and a violation of me. And, you know, one of the things in my area of psychology is trauma. You know, one of the things with offenders is access, right? Which is why some become a coach or a Boy Scout troop leader or what have you. And so literally at that point, because our parents had, become bishops and Episcopal supervisors, they had a condo in Baltimore that had security access. Like, you had to be buzzed up. Yes. So literally, he had been in our home many times. When I saw him at church the Sunday before, I was home visiting from Duke University. He walked up to me in the balcony. Hey, Thema. I'm like, hey, how's school going? Great. I'll come by and check on you sometime. Okay. And so literally when I got the call from the front desk saying such and such is here. And I said, send him up. You see? So it is access, a violation of trust. And after the violation, what he said to me before he walked out the door, you're still my little sister, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So what was so healing for me, after I told you, I don't know how much time passed, but you preached about it at Empowerment Temple, and I had never, maybe I could count on one hand the number of times I've heard women in ministry talk about assault in a sermon. I had never heard a man even mention it. You know, it's like you have how many Sundays in a year, and they have plenty of time to talk about gay people, to talk about, like, yes, you got 52, right? That's what you're spending your 52 on. No sermon on domestic violence, no sermon on molestation, no sermon on assault. And so when you preached about it and then offered the altar call for people who were survivors to come, and to see that altar flooded not only with women, but men, with children, with elders, your clarity in standing with me in that way was so important. Because I remember you sharing, I think when you were so broken up with it and you mentioned it to like a friend and they like asked you, are you sure? Like, are you sure? Like somehow I'm confused.
Right.
And you're like, Thema? No, like, yo,
Right.
no, there's no confusion here.
My evolving of it really didn't come into full manifestation till I moved to Atlanta. So I was here maybe 2 months as pastor, and they invited me to go see a private screening of Surviving R. Kelly. So, long-standing fan of R. Kelly's music. I didn't even want to go to the screening. Said, if I don't see it, I'm not accountable. I'm not responsible. I went and saw it. And I was so impacted by it. That was a Saturday. Sunday morning, I talk about what it is that I saw. The church got to do a better job of protecting our people. However many out of 10 Black women have been assaulted before they're 16. Said, the church has got to cover our young people. So I said, those of you who are in the church who've been assaulted, violated, touched inappropriately, come to the altar. I want to pray for you. I got counselors here. So my head is down, Thema, and I'm just doing my general altar call. I open my eyes and I'm thrown off because I wasn't prepared for how many boys were at that altar. And when I think about sexual assault and violation, I only, even in a large part, only saw it in terms of young women, but not the impact of young men.
Yes.
And the church doesn't really give space or grace or compassion or healing.
That's right.
For our sons who have gone through that process. I want you to talk about what that means.
There is a distinct, I want to say, an additional or unique dynamic around not only race but gender when it comes to sexual violation. And with boys, there's often this pressure to not talk about it because if they're violated by a girl or a woman, then it's seen as them as a hero, right? They're celebrated. Wow. So you have them at like 10 and their babysitter is molesting them. They're like, man, you got it going on. Like they're dapping this person up who's a kid. And then, the same when we see these examples of school teachers who are with male children, male students,
right.
But it's seen as some like rites of passage or it means something great. And then if they are a boy who is violated by a man, then the assumption is 1, that you're gay, and 2, then if you're gay, then that means you must consent. So that's, again, that myth that then you at all, like age doesn't matter, yes. Consent doesn't matter. And so, if you have a boy who comes forward who's been violated, and in any way people judge that boy to be effeminate, then it becomes like they're not really a victim of they must have wanted that or they must have enjoyed that, right? Yeah. And so we, as you name, have to do a better job because one of the things that is a risk for violation is prior violation, so re-victimization, because children have gotten the message like nobody cares anyway. Right? So you just freeze and wait for it to be over.
Wow.
And that vulnerability, it has an impact not only on that child's sense of themselves and well-being, but their future relationships, because it sets the tone of like, what is this? I want to say another piece around male violation is the number of men who get assaulted in prison. It's huge. And there's no compassion because people are like, well, what'd you get locked up for? Like, that's part of the punishment.
Right.
There was a nonprofit they were trying to do in L.A. called Stop Prisoner Rape. They couldn't raise funding, so they had to, like, change the name of it because it's almost like people think that's a part of your sentence.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think, because you're really doing a balancing act as therapist and as minister, what do you think the church needs to do a better job of in conveying mental health? And I know I'm getting ready to go into a battering ram. Is not always just a prayer issue.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
It's not meet me at the altar and you're done with it.
No. So it's that myth of prayer means you can't access anything else. And that if you access anything else, you don't have faith. So I say to people, if you're having a leak in your house, do you say, call the plumber or pray?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, if your child is failing, do you just pray with them or you get them a tutor? So we have to
No, that's good.
be holistic. And so therapy doesn't mean I don't believe in prayer. I pray and I go to therapy.
Yeah.
And it is the ways that we can shift it is integrating mental health in our liturgy, in our service.
Yeah.
So first of all, when you preach, every text has mental health in it. If you have a narrative approach to preaching, telling the story, let's tell the story of these people. And if you tell the story, the despair is going to come out, and it's also a lie that Jesus and the disciples and the prophets were always joyful. Like, where do we get that from? So it's when we apply prosperity gospel to mental health and think if you're not joyful, you don't have faith. It's like Jesus wasn't always joyful. The disciples weren't. The prophets were definitely not always joyful. And so we have to give room for I can have faith and still have questions and still have disappointment and still have frustration and still have embarrassment. That those things coexist. That's the human reality. So when we do altar calls and we pray, including mental health, assuming there are people in the house. Sometimes we think of mental health crisis is for people out there, not people in here. So there are people in the pews who are struggling. And if we can speak to the truth of that, it will be liberating, but then also make the referrals.
No, that's great. What do you think in childhood trauma and triumph, what was the best and the worst thing about being raised in the church?
I love it.
Yes.
The best, I would say, is the sense of community that so many people have your back. Like there's so many people cheering for you. I remember inviting friends to church and they would say like, how many aunts do you have? Because I'm like, this aunt such and such, this my aunt such. Yeah. So it is that sense of being carried, being loved. People are praying for you, like in a sincere way. They see you as like their niece and nephew, right? So there's nothing better than community. And I would say along with that, the worst would be people's sense of entitlement to access. And along those lines, one of the hardest things I had to learn as a PK, preacher's kid, as a Christian, was the holiness of no. Because you grow up being taught, if anybody ever asks you for anything, you should say yes. And when you're a gifted person, that will be your whole life. Yeah. People are asking you. And so learning, that you don't have to do everything. And I would say also learning that you don't have to spiritualize everything, right? Some people are not, as you say, so heavenly bound, there's no earthly good, right? I remember having a conversation with a sister in the church, and she was telling me the devil was busy because she got a parking ticket. I said, where'd you park? Where'd you park? That's why the devil didn't give you that ticket. You parked in the red zone, right? So that's it. So learning to, and very, I feel attuned to the spirit realm, and I'm very clear that it is real. Yeah. And there are some ways in which we don't acknowledge our part.
No, that's great. A lot of how it is that we throw off in church, people think with no psychology experience that they can follow the breadcrumbs for where it went. I remember when I preached this sermon, These Hoes Ain't Loyal. Yes.
Sarah, I got to go on the record.
Yes.
And I called you.
That's
go ahead.
That's a part of my story.
Yeah. Like, that was terrible.
So about 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes after church was over, you called me and said, "This isn't good. This is very bad." And this is very bad. And what people didn't know is just that Friday before then, I was up to be the head of a national organization. And they said, "No, we don't want a pastor to come in and lead that organization." As you said to me, just because of what happened Friday, you have let all of your guard down. That in a healthier, stronger place, you would have been more mindful to do it.
Yes. And let me say also, one of the things I remember saying in that call is you have to look beyond your pews, because the people sitting in the front of your congregation were cheering, and you have a national, international imprint. And so some people will cheer no matter what you say. So they can't be your check of like integrity or clarity. Like that has to be an inside job, which why I appreciate on Sunday when you had a little slip, you immediately said, "Sorry, mother." Right? But you got like, it didn't require a call. I was like, "He got it."
You're right.
Yes.
No, it happens. And so what is it called when one thing shows itself up but is not connected to that thing?
Yeah. So sometimes it can be displacement. So I can't respond here. Like you couldn't go before that group who turned you down.
You're right.
So then that frustration, then gets pulled out in another way.
Right.
Yeah.
What would you say was the main influencer of your childhood in being a parent?
I think, I'm sure there were many, but one of them would be like, mommy's the queen of questions.
Oh, yeah.
Right? She's going to interview you. And so her doing that, and one of the things that sticks out for me was very early in life, she bought us both journals, and she would say things to us like, "What do you think it will take to fix the world?" And expect us to have an answer. Go to your room and journal about what it will take to fix the world. And so because she asked it and was serious, I thought we must have the answer, right? So then I'm in my room in 4th grade talking about like what we need to do. And I think that gave us both a sense of confidence that like we have some answers or that we can lead. And so trying to like ask my children questions and believe they have answers.
Wow. And they have risen to it.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah, no,
they're amazing.
They're great. There's one daughter at NYU.
Yes.
And the son who is the president of every middle school, high school, and primary school in the universe.
Leaders are made. And they were intentional. Interestingly, a lot of women, maybe men do it, I don't think so much, but women often come up with lists of qualities they want in a partner.
Yes.
And when
men do it.
Okay.
Men do it. They don't write it down.
They don't write it down.
But they got a checklist.
They got a list.
They got, and regrettably, most of them are physical.
Right.
But every man got a list of what it is that they want on their checklist.
So when Mommy shared with me her list, I was startled because one of the things on her list was she wanted to be with a leader.
I never knew that.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
How did you get that information?
You just got to be in the right place. Ask the right questions.
Wow.
Right? So she was in undergrad. He was in seminary, but was an activist on campus.
Yeah.
And although he spotted her first, but that was important to her, like to not be with a follower.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now here you are, the head of this global ministry, and I'm the past president of APA. So leaders make leaders.
And you said leaders are made, not born.
Yeah.
And here is the psychosis of the Black church. A lot of Black churches are on a downward spiral because they force people into leadership because they were born into a certain last name. 100%. And I want you to talk about the danger of inherited leadership and not earned leadership.
Yes. Yeah. Because what happens is you never get to discover what your giftings are, right? When you are told early, oh, you're going to be this, you're going to be that, you never have permission to discover Like what actually, so Howard Thurman, the Black theologian, says, do the thing that makes your heart come alive, because far too few of us are actually alive.
Yes.
And the thing that awakened your parent may not be the thing that awakens you. And also, to be honest, you might not be good at it.
Wow.
Right?
Or called to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to know that's not a punishment from God. God has something for you. So you keep hanging at your parents' door. You never discover your own door. So that's one of the things I appreciated with our parents is, you know, even though now all four of us are in ministry, there was never any pressure
None.
for me to
Both of them didn't want me to start a church. Both of them.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
let's pray over this.
Right. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
To be, especially because you did your trial sermon early.
Right.
How, like 18?
Yeah.
So, but to be able to have, even when you had your experience going to South Africa, it's like just go and have some life experiences. The NAACP,
Yeah.
it informs you and also not only equips you for the calling, but clarifying what is the calling.
Yeah. I had a couple of weeks ago a guest on this show. He has a podcast called Dear Future Wife. Our parents have mentored, coached, counseled, I'm going to make up a word, therapized many couples across the globe.
Yeah.
And their only two children are divorced.
100%.
Their only two children are divorced. And they've been
yes.
married how many years?
57. Because you're 50.
Two. So 54 years.
54.
Yeah, you're 50.
Yes.
Yeah, so they've
Yes.
been married for 54 years. I'll never forget, we came home. At that point, both of us were at Duke. I was in seminary, you were in undergrad. And we were out to lunch with Mom, and Mom said, Jamal, Thema, make sure you don't fall in love with a taker because you are a giver.
Yes.
And a giver has no boundaries. And you'll give up everything and be left with nothing. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yes.
Very well.
Okay. So I'm going to do something we've never done,
Okay.
the two of us. This is our own, Lateris, I'm giving you a shout out. We're doing our own as we are the only siblings to each other. So I'm going to do Dear Future Husband of Thema.
Oh. Wait, sit you by. Okay. All right.
Yes. I'm going to do Dear Future Husband to Thema on what it is as her brother
Yes.
I would expect and what it is that I would want
Okay.
and hope to see. If you want, you can do the same thing. I don't want you to feel any pressure.
I'll do it.
You do
I
it.
feel
Okay.
inspired.
Yeah, let's do it. We've never done this before. Yes. So any person who is going to marry my sister has got to be, one, absolutely brilliant because we have low tolerance for somebody who is not a thinker.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm hitting one for
You're
one.
good. You're good. Thank you.
Two, you will have to be a creative.
Yes.
Because my sister is a writer, is a poet, is a dancer, is a preacher, is a lecturer. If you don't embrace the arts,
Yeah.
it ain't going to work.
It's not going to work.
Yes. Three,
You 2 for 2?
yes. Three, you have to learn how to play football because you have to be a quarterback and a cheerleader. If you cannot throw to her and don't know how to cheer for her, it ain't going to work. It's got to be somebody who can applause when it is that she is making downs, but also have to have some strategy. Whoever is with my sister has to put her in a position that she don't have to think for everybody on the team. Somebody else can think, somebody else can strategize.
I like it. 3
Yes.
for 3.
3 for 3. I got one more. I'm out of here.
All right.
You have to have a financial plan. You have to have a financial plan.
Y'all feel the intensity of that?
You have to have a financial plan that is legacy in mind. How? Any man that's going to be with my sister, let me say to you, you are absolutely blessed because she's not in the clothes. She's not in the shoes. You ain't got to buy no Gucci bag. She going to always present herself pristine, but material things is not on the
Not
bucket
in it.
list.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to be forward thinking because my sister's making money. She's never going to say it, but she is doing very well. So whoever is coming, It's got to have a bank slip and not a withdrawal slip. Is that
I
fair?
like it.
Okay.
Yeah. 4 for 4.
4 for 4.
All right.
Okay.
I like it. Are you ready?
No.
Well,
I'm not ready, but go ahead. Wait, I'm not ready. Okay, go. Okay, go ahead.
First, future wife,
Yes.
you have to love the man Jamal,
Yes.
not the prophet, minister, pastor,
Yes.
because it is your love of Jamal the person which will make it a joy, a delight, even when you are, and especially when you're not on,
Yes.
because it's a different person.
It's a completely different person.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we 1 for 1.
We 1 for 1.
Love the person.
Okay.
Number 2, the wife of Jamal has to love people.
Period.
You can't consider yourself in competition with the church or the community or the African diaspora. Right? This is what he's called for.
Yes.
And so if it will annoy you, irritate you, seem as a slight or an offense to you that he's going to a community meeting,
Yes.
then you're going to be bothered.
Yes.
And so in order to make it work, love people. If you don't love people, opt out. Don't do it.
Man, I'm thumbnailing this right on my IG page. Go ahead, number 3.
All right.
Let's go. I feel all right. So
Yes.
far.
Number 3,
Yes.
your wife has to be a woman with discernment as it relates to other people. Because it's a lot of people in your orbit,
Yes.
and they have to be discerning in order to not stress themselves out. Some stuff is not.
Wow, that was so
That
well
was good.
spoken.
Thank you.
That was great.
Okay.
You got to put that in the next book. Go ahead. Let's go to number 4.
Okay. Number 4, you have to have a major prayer life.
Yes. That may be number 1.
It is.
Yeah.
And you didn't put that on my list. Y'all see?
No, I started with spiritual first. Yeah,
think
run the
so.
tape back. Y'all run the tape back. Rewind it on YouTube right now. Go back to number 1. Yes. What was my number 1?
It wasn't God.
Yes. No.
That's all right. You put it in now. Put it in
Okay.
now.
It's an asterisk.
It was an understood.
Yes.
We already
First.
knew.
What's understood don't have to be explained. Go ahead.
Okay, so
That
for
prayer
yours,
life.
we need that prayer life
Yes.
because they'll have discernment.
Yes.
And then I'm going to give you your, can I give 2? How am we doing with time?
This is
Okay.
you. It's
All
you.
right. Number, whatever number we're on, 4, you have to be supremely confident and secure within yourself, because insecurity with a public-facing person will devastate you and devastate the relationship. But when you're clear about who you are, you're not easily moved. I was telling you, you don't need me to say more.
I don't know where you're going. You
What?
told who what?
I told you, I told you last
Yes.
night
Yes.
that all of my life I have dealt with getting messages from people who have crushes on you. It's just a reality.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So I say that because you drink your water.
Yes.
If you're going to be the wife, you can't be moved by them.
Yes.
They just have to keep their eyes on you and on God.
Yes. Yes.
Okay? The crushes are you. It's not. That comes with it.
Yeah.
That comes. Okay. You breathe it.
I'm okay.
Okay. Confident. So just be confident. Because here's the thing that you can, that whoever you are, that you can rest in.
Yes.
You could remain single the rest of your life and people not judge that. Like early on, there was this idea of like, oh, you can't be a pastor if you're single. You're single. You're pastoring this amazing church. If you wanted to remain single, you could do that. So if you choose to marry again, like that's a choice you're making to sign up for that. So then that person can be confident in that, right? Like he didn't have to do this.
No, he didn't have
He didn't have to do it.
He
So,
didn't have to.
and my last one for fun,
Yeah.
my last one for fun
Yes.
is you got to be fly.
Yes.
because
You gotta add that in there.
I know it's necessary.
It's necessary.
If you got a prayer life and confidence, but no shimmy
you
shim,
gotta have some shoes.
it's yeah.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
you know,
You did good.
I did good.
All of thank you. Is any of this in the next book that's coming out?
Thank you very much. It is.
All
It is.
right, okay.
In June, the workbook is coming out, Reclaim Yourself.
Yes.
And it is a workbook on how you come home to the truth of who you are.
Wow.
And that's
Is this the next level of homecoming?
it's the next level homecoming.
Okay.
So homecoming was 2022,
Yes.
and you all sponsored me with a wonderful book reading.
Yes.
In June, I will be back last week of June for
Yes.
the mental health workshop.
Mental Health Crusade.
Mental health crusade.
Are we the first church in the country to do 3 days
Yes.
of wholeness of mental health? The last Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of June. You got to be at New.
Come.
It's gonna be amazing.
It's going to be amazing.
Yes.
And you have given me free license.
Yes.
He's like, if it's a workshop exercise or if we're going to slay him in the spirit,
Mm.
whatever we're going to do it.
I'm there. I'm y'all
I'm
around
excited.
for the week.
Thank you. And I will have Reclaim Yourself, but pre-orders are available now. Reclaim Yourself.
Yes. I have done this for nobody. I have been on for weeks, but you're my sister, so I have to do it. You also have a podcast.
Thank you very much.
Now,
My-
this may be edited, but
Oh, as I'm saying, thank you.
no,
No, put this in the reel, the feed.
Yes.
And look, and that. Oh, okay. So that's another one for your wife. They have to have a sense of humor because you joke all the time.
All the time.
Okay, so you just got to try not to be too sensitive.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes, my podcast is the Homecoming Podcast. It's on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes.
You heard it here. You will not hear me push any other podcast as long as I am on. I
Don't
push
ask.
nobody. But this is it. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Thank you. I have loved it.
No, this has been great. It's been healing and hopeful for me. Thank you all for hanging out with me and my sister, Dr. Thema. You have been watching the Jamal Bryant Podcast. Let's be clear. I hope by now you are following and subscribing on YouTube. I hope you'll share this conversation with the people in your family, the people who are in your circle, and the people who think that they want to marry you. Have an incredible day, and we'll see you next time.